Welcome back to Love of One podcast, where we talk about everything modalities to find ourselves back to ourselves, feeling the love of one within. I am honored to have Debra Martin here today with me. She is so special to me and my own experience, which we'll dive into today. But other than that, she is a world-renowned healer, author, and researcher, which is certified researcher. And I kind of want to get into that a little bit too with your mediumship and those abilities. And then she also gives back a lot to the Army for Love community, and we'll talk about that as well and how you can be a part of that. Today, I want to dive in and talk about Debra. She's had some amazing experiences in her own life and her own journey, where she's had 3 out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, right? Not out-of-body, but I guess it's out-of-body is the same thing in a different way. And specifically, the third one in 2012 was when you had cancer, and that's the one that really took you and spun you off into these amazing spiritual gifts that we're here to talk about today. Is that correct?
Well, the 2012, I didn't have the cancer.
Mm.
I was just really sick, but years later I got cancer, and sometimes we ask like, I've been through so much, why do I need to go through that too?
Oh my gosh,
And
yes.
so it just brought me to really ask questions when we're dealing with an illness, like, what are you here to teach me? What lessons do you have? So I wrote a book on that,
Mhm.
on how people can really love their body while they're going through such a difficult time.
In the near-death experience that you talk about, I saw you on Gaia many times, and that's how I found you. And before I took some of your sessions, which we'll also get into, what happened in that moment in 2012? Because I feel like that was a pivotal time for you.
It was one of my biggest NDEs because I did have an out-of-body experience. 2 of my NDEs I did, but this one really took me to a level where I was actually seeing, the divine, connecting with the divine. And so I had been sick. I had been being seen by Mayo Clinic for a long time, and I was to the point where I was in so much pain. I was just laying in bed. I had no quality of life. I was just like, if I even ate like a teeny bit of cracker or a sip of water, I would be in excruciating pain. And so they couldn't find out what was going on. After a while, you just feel like this is enough. I'm ready
Yeah.
to leave. I'm ready to exit. Right.
Yeah.
And so when I kind of started to pray to God saying, just take me. You can just take me. Now, I was already a medium at that time. I got tested with the Windbridge lab. And so I got certified as a research medium. And one afternoon, when I was just laying in bed, I witnessed spiritual surgeons coming into my room. So, seeing that as a medium, I wasn't scared. No, I wasn't scared at all. I was just like, well, what are they here for?
Yeah.
And I saw them cut in my abdomen, kind of where the pancreas is. And it was excruciating pain. And I thought, okay, how am I going to get through this? Really don't want to stop it because obviously they're here for me. But how am I really going to embrace this? And the one thing is to kind of calm the mind, right? I'm going to remove myself from what's happening. And I just took a deep breath and going, okay, just let your mind go, almost like in meditation, right?
Yeah.
And I remember just closing my eyes, taking a deep breath. And as I did, my soul came out of my body and started transcending upward.
Wow.
And I can remember it. I can remember it so vividly as being so effort and beautiful and graceful. And I came to this space that was all white. And so I can remember feeling like it'd be like standing on a bunch of clouds and going, okay, now what? Where am I? What am I supposed to right?
Uh-huh.
So I'm there and I see these hands reach out for me. And as they reach out, I'm now witnessing my body in the arms. And I'm thinking, this is God.
Uh-huh.
And I felt that unbelievable sense of love
Mm.
and comfort. Like it's indescribable, but it just goes, you're just like, okay, this is good.
Yeah.
When I look back at that, I think, "Oh, my soul was seeing my body being held, how sick I was."
Mm.
And so I remember following, walking, and he was carrying my body, and he placed me on a beam of light. When he placed me on this beam of light, there was a coffin next to it, And it was like a glass coffin. It was beautiful. And I was like, "Oh, like Snow White. Maybe I could just, like, test this out." No, I better not, because if I don't know what the repercussions are, right?
Sure.
But then I was asked to then follow and go into this dome, and I asked lots of questions along the way, like, "Why do we have to go in this dome? What am I gonna see? What am I gonna hear?" And I heard that we need to go into this dome because everything that I was gonna be told was just supposed to be heard by me, not anybody in the universe. It was gonna block it.
Uh-huh.
Give it like a Faraday cage, right? You go inside
Uh-huh.
and nobody can get in, the energy can't. So I remember being in there, and there was this stack of papers, and it was like sitting down at a desk and feeling like this big, beautiful, loving entities behind me. And I was told, you're on this is your lifeline contract and you've been on borrowed time. So would you like to sign it to have more time? And I'm like, huh, I don't want to go back not healthy. Right.
Yeah.
And like, so I remember just reading like half of the page, and I put it in my book, Proof of Miracles, what I actually saw, what I went through. But basically, I was signing that I would go back healthy, but I'd be on a new mission. And one of the words was voice. And I thought, well, that's okay. I can be the voice of a medium. I can do this. This is easy. But it took a whole nother spin later. So I remember signing it and saying 12112, and I heard all numbers are reversible, and so is this. And so at that moment, I was like, okay. I felt I was taking an oath, and God was giving his oath back. Like,
Mm.
"You're gonna go back, you have a new mission." So now when I went back into my body, I could actually feel getting back into the body, almost like the body was filling up with air, like the
Yeah.
air match. And I went
Uh,
in, but I remember gasping for air, like, "Oh," like, "Oh my gosh."
wow.
And at that moment, I actually questioned, "Am I the same person? Like, what just
Mm.
happened?" Spiritual surgeons were no longer there. And I started like, I need to write this down. I'm going to forget this. I'm telling you, something like that, you're not going to forget. But
Yeah.
I was just learn. So I wrote it down and I sat with it and I walked through it. And I learned eventually that I would use my mediumship in my healing abilities. I got the gift of healing in that NDE. And that's what I came back for. That was my new mission. And so when I do healing sessions now, I'm just the vessel, I'm the instrument, and what comes through are words from spirit, and they come through knowing you, where I don't know anything about you. They know who you are, they know what you need, and it's just remarkable, miraculous. I'm always in awe, but yeah, that was a very pivotal moment to get me to where I am today.
Wow. Wow. Some people listening to this are probably like, "What did she just say?" But I understand, and along my journey to remembering who I am and my mission too, every door is another aha moment, and understanding why you're here, and understanding that these sort of miracles do occur all the time, and we have it within ourselves to do that. So I came to some of your group sessions to try it out. I was so curious, and I noticed the things that you asked were interesting to me, and they were very simple, right? When you sign up, you have to have a full picture of yourself, and then you can, but you don't have to write an intention. And
Right.
what does that mean? Because I think a lot of people think, do I have to have an intention? But what if you don't know, or you have too many things and you can't point it out?
Some people just don't wanna share what they're going through because they wanna say, like, "Well, I'm just gonna let it up to God to see what they need," or maybe it's something else that's causing that, and they figure, "You know what? I'm just gonna let go and let God do it." Some people just wanna be more personal and say, "Well, let's see if she can figure it out." And then there's others that really feel like, "Well, if she's gonna pray before the session, I'm gonna send those intentions and have her pray on them." And I do. So it could take up to 2 hours, for me to really spend that time. And with each person, right? I'm going
Yeah.
to take the picture. I'm going to face it to this beautiful picture of Jesus I have in my room where when I look into those eyes, I feel connected to that higher frequency who I call God, the absolute
Mm.
one. And I'm reading those intentions. But when I'm finished reading the intentions, I go back with here's what this person's asking for. And then I go back with, thank you, God, for healing this. Thank you, God, for healing this. Thank you, God, for healing this, standing in it as this is what's transpiring and going to transpire and giving gratitude for it. And then I have to remove my humanness aside because
Mhm.
if I get my ego involved, then I'm getting in the way. So I think intentions are up to a person if they want to have the intention to place it out there. The best thing is once you set your intention, you need to know and trust that I already place that into God's hands so that when you come into the session, you're not having expectations. You're waiting to hear those words. You're waiting to hear what's going to transpire and just really being open to your heart to receiving the messages that are coming through for you and the energy.
Yeah. What I also noticed, which I thought was extremely interesting, Deborah, is that I could have gifted this group session to somebody and not even have them know or understand or have the same belief system, and yet that it would still work on them. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. So what's interesting with that is, you know, when somebody does a prayer,
Mhm.
their intentions are out of love. So when somebody does gifts of healing for someone, their intentions are out of love.
Mhm.
So they don't need to know. And it's fascinating to see how that works because some people never find out that they ever had a healing and they're healed. And some people will feel like, gosh, I felt like extra tired today, or I felt, some energy today, and they have no idea. But I can share a quick story of one
Sure.
where there was a woman reached out to me and she said her mother was an alcoholic and was just verbally, mean to the whole
Mhm.
family. They're like, she shouldn't have to live this way. But she won't stop drinking. And she had a healing session and they let me know that out of nowhere she stopped drinking and her attitude changed. And not only was the mother healed, but they got their mother back. So everybody was healed.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That's beautiful. Wow.
Yeah.
Makes me think of people I need to start gifting.
Yeah.
Oh, I can speak of my experience too. I've had 4 group sessions with you. But the first one was the most profound, which made me keep coming back. I didn't talk about it much because I still wasn't accepting it. I came in though with the intention of fixing my health. I couldn't really pinpoint it because I had lots of things going on. I was through that part of my journey. So I just put make my body healthy, my vessel healthy to continue on my path forward. I think was pretty much a vague intention. And so what the process is too, for those who are listening and maybe have never heard of your process, is that once we do that, we join the group session. At that time, everyone in that group holds the intention, holds the prayer to amplify the whole space that we're holding together. And then we don't see you or connect with you via phone or Zoom or anything, but instead, we're all holding space while you're getting or having surgery, correct? And then later, once you're done, you send the recording, and then it's up to us of when we want to listen to it. And then when we do, I mean, I don't know if everyone has the same experience, everyone's different, but I laid down on my bed and lit a candle, said some prayers, meditated before you said that was the time, right? So that I was setting the intention in my space, laying down while you were doing your surgery. And I could feel things already. I could feel things. And then when I listened to it, it was just off the charts. Oh, off the charts. Everything resonated. I think I went through every emotion possible. I cried, I screamed, my body shook. But what was the most profound was I had a small brain tumor. It was shown to me in an ayahuasca ceremony too. It was just a small, like pea size, but it was right in the back of my right skull. And I didn't want to accept it because I have this big mission. And I was like, well, how am I supposed to do it if I have to deal with this? And so they said, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. And at that moment in that recording, when you had said in that recording, that, "Oh, I feel something pulling on my head, on the right side, and my whole face is vibrating, and it's painful, it's throbbing." And I didn't feel what it sounded like as much as you felt, but I did feel it, and all of a sudden, my whole side of my face started shaking and pulling. My eye was switching. I had a huge throb, like someone was pulling out this thing in my head energetically. And it was so profound. I started bawling. And as soon as you said the words, this is cancer that someone doesn't know they have. And I bawled and I knew it was me. And my guides were like, yes, this is you. And I got goosebumps and my body shook and my face was just, my face was just like, and it just pulled it out, and then I've had some regression sessions after, just scanning my body to check, and they said, "No, it's out. She cleared it. We taught her how it can be cleared energetically through what you do." So, thank you, and I wanted to share that with everybody because these are the things that your gifts provide people to do this spiritual
I
surgery.
it's fascinating to listen to you because, I just get you had a small brain tumor that was healed. Hearing it and describing it, it takes me back to that moment of feeling that. I never remember the words, but I can feel the feelings. And I remember that. I remember the tightness. That's what I
Mhm.
remember. And the pulling. And to hear you feeling exactly what I was saying and feeling, it's undeniable what's taking place.
Mhm.
And then to be so in aligned with it even before you even receive the healing,
Yeah,
that you were feeling different things, and then you listen to it and go, "Okay, that aligns." And some people will feel things, some people will feel nothing at all, and I wanna make sure people understand, if you don't feel nothing at all, that doesn't mean you didn't receive.
right.
Everybody receives differently, right?
Mhm.
But that was profound. That
Yeah,
was to hear this, and it was a
yeah.
pure miracle.
Absolutely, 100%, and I think it's important to point out with your work that I had clearly said, "I don't connect with you on Zoom," but I listened to it an hour and a half after it was done. So these things are taking place in a future timeline, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's so interesting is because people in different parts of the world, right? They're on different time frames, and they might start feeling it the immediate as it's happening, or they might start feeling it when they're sleeping, or they might feel it when they first wake up. They might not feel it until they're ready to leave work and come home and sit with it. God knows when you're gonna start receiving, and I've had some people go, "I've totally forgot it was the group healing today," and I was sitting at my lunch in my car, and I started going my head started nodding. A lot of times, a lot of people will say they just fall asleep during the entire time
Yeah.
that's happening
Yeah.
because you do receive some sedation, and that's
Yeah.
from if you're gonna have a spiritual surgery, so they'll feel super, like, lethargic and out of it. With that said, too, people have said, "Well, I have an exam that day. Can I make it through my exam?" And it's like,
Right.
"Yeah, God will know that you're making it through the exam and you'll receive it later." So it's so cool to watch how everybody receives at different times. Some people will wait 2, 3 days before they listen to it, and that
Yeah.
energy holds. That's what's so cool. It holds, and that's why I say you can listen to it as many times as you wish,
Yeah.
because it doesn't lose its essence or power. Just continue to receive.
And
Yeah.
that is true because I've listened to because I had 3 others with you months, in succession just to clear a bunch of other stuff out, and, yeah, I'll still go back and listen to a certain one every now and then, and it will knock me out most of the time now, just Angie nothing. But I definitely feel it, and I can hear it, and sometimes they'll wake me up to hear a certain point that you're saying, which I wouldn't have remembered hearing when I had listened to it prior. So, it's like that message was ready for me at that moment, not when I listened to it.
I hear that a lot. It's like they listen 2 or 3 times and they hears different things each time,
Mm,
and it's like you're downgrading and integrating what's being done. Maybe the first time, no expectations, second time, you're hearing different words, third time, all of a sudden, "Oh my gosh, I didn't hear that," and it hits home.
yeah.
So, yeah, it's fascinating to hear how each person receives and how when they listen to it more than one time, how it continues to give other messages and other
Yeah,
feelings.
which I just heard from my guides. Yes, you need to listen to the other one that was talking about your sinuses. Listen, I'm ready
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
and there's
So
so much that happens in those groups,
yeah,
right? There's so much that happens. I mean, the healing's happening,
yeah,
whether it's in a private or the groups, it's happening on emotional, physical, spiritual, everything is being touched, and so I find myself when it's all coming through, I can just talk, la, 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 la. Then at the end, I'm like stuttering. Okay, we're going to end. And I'm back. And it's like, get back into your body, get back into balance. And you can hear a difference. It's like, okay.
I could definitely hear a different yeah, I could definitely hear a difference in your recordings at the end. And so with that point, how do you feel in your body? Because it sounds like during that moment, you're really feeling everything, like to the taste of the sedation medicine. And then how does your body react after? Because I always worry about you. Are you okay? After it's all done.
Yeah, a lot of people that have had, like, private sessions or even the group, they'll say, "Feel bad. I heard the amount of pain they were going through." Because if they're gonna cut somewhere, it's a gift God gives me for me to feel it, because then I don't deny where the spiritual surgeons are working, right?
Mm,
If it ends up being I never know what session's gonna do what to me. That's why I
yeah.
only do 1 session per day, and I just really let it be that session. And so I have to prepare my body. I have to make sure that I'm eating clean. I have to make sure I'm balanced. I have to, really take care of myself so I can put 100% of myself in the session.
Mhm.
Then after the session, I have a salt bowl in my room and I ask that anything that's remnants will go into the salt bowl and I bless it afterwards. And I have to admit, there's times when if it was really draining, I need to sit and regroup. I need to either take a walk, get some sun, or I need to, sometimes I have to sleep. It
Yeah.
does, never know, but it's okay because I'm so in awe over what I get to witness. It's like sitting in the front row of a movie theater and going,
Right.
wow, what are we going to see today? Right.
Yeah, I
So
can see that.
yeah. And it does take a toll. It takes a toll sometimes in relationships. It takes I'm sorry, I've got to cancel. I'm extremely exhausted and I want to prepare for the next day. Right.
Yeah.
So it's a balance. You really have to have balance in life.
Yeah. And what are your private sessions like? So we talked a lot about the group sessions. You hold those once a month. What about your private offerings?
Private offerings are basically a lot like the group. I get your picture. You can tell me what's happening or not what's happening. And it's all the words that come through are gonna be individualized. It's
Right.
all going to them, right? And so everything that's being said and what's so fascinating with this is, okay, there's 2 things. One thing is it could be I'm touching on something that was trauma from deep down from when you were a child. There's many podcasts and testimonials on my YouTube, right, that I
Mm,
interview these people with. And one lady I can remember this. We were taken to another dimension, right? And I can remember her being talked to, and she was shown her healthy self. And she's like, oh, that's what that looks like. I thought that was such a pivotal moment, right?
wow.
So she's looking at that. And then all of a sudden, behind God, I see this person peeking around the corner. And I'm like, I don't think you're supposed to be here. And I had this feeling of, Eh, hesitance. And she could hear it in my voice when she listened to it.
Mm.
She speaks about this. And I go, "Oh, your father's here." Like that. "Oh, your father's here." So now they're gonna have a conversation. What's interesting and so amazing about this is her father abused her from a young age on sexually.
Wow.
And so her my instincts were correct, like, right? But her instincts, she's like, you would never guess what she felt. She felt like, I want to give him a hug.
Oh, interesting.
So it went on a soul to soul level, not on a
A
human
human level.
level. And she was able to heal the trauma that was deep down, which also started helping her heal other parts of her body. But I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
Only God knew this. I didn't know that her father would step in. She didn't ask to connect to a loved one. So the privates just go a little deeper and more
Yeah.
individualized, but it's like, wow. And then when she shares that, it's like, wow. And a lot of things would be told that they never told anybody. And how
Profound.
would I have known? Right. I mean, I've had another session where this mother was needing a healing and an angel brought this baby forth. and she never told anybody that she lost a baby. Only her and her husband knew, and they were distraught over it, but it was able to heal because she was able to hold it and know, like, there's no judgment here, right? And don't judge yourself. But she's like, Deborah, we didn't tell anybody. How'd you know that?" It just comes through. It's just really beautiful.
That is so beautiful. Wow. That seems so deep and profound on such an individual level.
That's what happens. You never know. And when you get done, you're like, okay, now I'm going to send it to this person. You can't question it because it came through, but you're like, wonder what they're going to respond back.
Right? Yeah.
Right. Right. I'm going to different parts of the body and describing what I'm feeling, but I don't know if they have a kidney bag. They'll come back and say, I do have a kidney bag.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Jeez.
amazing.
That is amazing. So those that are skeptical, even listening
Mhm.
to these amazing stories, you've been certified in your mediumship. What is that process? What was that like?
So you can go to the windbridge.org website and really look at the exact process. I went through a quadruple blind experiment where you could not debunk them. They had a hard time even passing people. But I worked with Dr. Gary Schwartz and Dr. Julie Beischel first, and then Julie Beischel did the quadruple blind through the Windbridge. So being a lab certified medium means so much to me because I went in being skeptical. Okay. I went
Interesting.
in looking, what's the afterlife? I was dabbling into what does this mean? And so to be able to go through something like this where science proves it,
Yeah.
that it gives you the credibility that what you're receiving, it was kind of like science was my backbone. It was like gave me the strength and courage to say, okay, I can help people.
Yeah. That gave me the
Yeah.
confidence and the belief system
Yeah, correct. And so
to anchor in.
being skeptical doesn't mean you won't receive.
Yeah.
I did a healing session for a gentleman that had the most profound session, and he came in going, "I'm just coming because, my daughter sent me." And he had a healing. He was like, "Why me?" But why not you? And
Yeah.
so to the skeptical person, I would say, come in with no expectations and just really just be in that moment when you listen, like, just really be in that moment. What does that mean? It's kinda like when you meditate, you're turning off everything else just for that time and allow your body to receive. It's like turning off the brain, although the brain's receiving,
Yeah.
right? But you're being quiet and still and saying, "You know what? I'll do this for an hour. What do I have to lose?"
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have nothing to lose, everything to gain. And you never
Correct.
know what's gonna happen. Because I went in with a different expectation, and I think that's it. You surrender to no expectations sometimes and see what happens.
Well, right, and I read your words, and then I'm not limiting it to that, and that's the one thing that we want to know is when we limit things or have expectations cause limitations,
Mhm.
right? So if we remove the expectations, then we open ourselves up to everything and all.
Beautiful. Can you talk about Army for Love? What is
Yeah.
that you offer? Because I think I think it's beautiful work. I read about it, but for those listening that haven't, can you explain that for us?
Yeah, so when I had cancer, I was told when I was in the radiation machine, it was my God time. I used to use that as my God time, and I heard the words that I need to do a community. It's a community of love.
Mhm.
And so an army, and he said, "Build your army." And I had cancer, I built my army around me, spiritually and physically, and those who I felt that I wanted to be part of my army, I would share with, right?
Mm,
Because I felt energy that people put out there is what's gonna be heard.
mm,
And so I thought, "Okay, well, let's build an army for people, an army
mm,
for love." And so this platform is for people to come on, share their struggles, maybe listen to other people's struggles, and there's other people on the platform that might even have experienced that and have knowledge. This doesn't just come from me.
mhm,
And so we're just spending this hour. In fact, tomorrow at 3 o'clock is when we have it on the first Tuesday of every month.
mm,
And we're really holding each other up and holding each other with love. And then at the end of the session, I do about a 15-minute mini healing. And
mm.
everybody just receives, and we have seen miracles in front of our eyes. All of us have witnessed them.
Even for 15 minutes? Do you have a
If
couple you could share?
Sure. This one's on my website. You probably could go to the Army for Love tab and scroll down and hear Giovanni actually share his story.
Mhm.
He had a police officer and he had injured his neck. He had gone through, every scan, doctor saying you need to have this surgery. And he was pushing off and he saw me on Gaia and said, that Army for Love, that really resonated with him. And so he said, what do I have to lose? So he joins. I've never met him before. He was quiet the entire time. And during the mini healing session, I saw spiritual surgeons come in for the very first time.
Mm.
And I can remember them going to the neck and going, ow, like this hurts. Somebody has a major neck issue and they're going to put, I felt the medicine go into this area. So more was done. Other people received too in the abdomen. Like it was an amazing evening. And he gets on and he raises his hands and he speaks. He says, I just want to share with you. But he tells me about his neck and how he didn't want to go for surgery. And he looks right at me and goes, I received a miracle, just like that. And I said, well, what did you feel? And he goes, I felt the warmth, I felt the
Mm.
heat, everything go in. And I said, well, me now making sure, for everybody on the platform, come back in a month
Mm.
and let us know what you're doing. And so he kept in contact with me. He came back in the month and he had scans. Everything turned out to be normal and he didn't need
Wow.
surgery. And it
15
was
minutes.
just like that. And so I think healing transfers on all different levels. And some of the most miraculous ones are ones that you least expect. Like I had one gal that had mental illness and this
Mhm.
is a private. And she didn't share that she had struggled with mental illness. She didn't write anything. But that was one of the things that I saw. And I saw them rewiring the brain, kind of going, think of it as rewinding, going back to when you were healthy. She was healed instantly. Now, oftentimes healing is a process, right? You got to stand in it, you got to walk through it, you got to just let it integrate and heal and stand in your faith. With hers, it happened instantly. And she emailed me and said it was like she was walking in fog, almost with sunglasses, and everything was, as soon as the session was done, the light was on. She tried to commit suicide 3 times, and she also was in a mental institute. This was 20 years of mental illness that was healed in an hour.
Wow,
And
miraculous.
so yeah, that's what I'm saying. I hope listeners aren't thinking like, "Look at me." This
Yeah.
isn't about me. I'm not trying to, like, share all these to say put myself on a pedestal. This is God's work, and my hope is that them hearing these stories, that they know that this is available to them too,
Mm.
right? I've had sessions where they don't work with what they want healed too,
Mhm.
right? I'm not God and I can't heal everything, but I do know that healing comes in on different levels.
Sure, and you're a conduit, like a bridge between
Right.
spirit and the person receiving. Yeah,
Correct. And
yeah.
sometimes maybe it's their mission to feel they have to go through some kind of lesson. I don't know. So it gets tricky because if somebody really didn't get the healing they want, I'll actually cry because I
Mhm.
feel almost responsible, yet I know that I'm not responsible. I put everything into God's hands, but that's how much I put into it. I care. And so when you're sad, I'm sad. And it's just like, okay, well, go re-listen to it. Stand in it. Listen to those words. Do your part.
Mhm.
And, you know, it comes in different forms. I had one lady that was dying of cancer and she thought that she was completely healed from the cancer, but she was healed from her trauma. Now we thought that she was going to be going to live for months and months and she didn't.
Mhm.
And she wrote to me that what was healed was more important to her than the cancer because then when she was going to transcend, she didn't have all that baggage.
Mhm. That makes sense.
So it's just right. So you just don't know what each session's going to bring and be open to miracles happening in so many different ways and so many different levels.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why I'm doing this podcast because each modality for me has transpired a different level of trauma release and another dis-ease in my body or discomfort in my body. And each one does something different. And every time, that's why I have to have this story too, because it was part of my healing journey. And it's such a beautiful thing. I mean, people should watch Gaia a little bit more often too. That's where I'm finding everybody. Well, that looks good. I'm gonna try that too.
Right? And
Yeah.
I believe in all types of modalities.
Mhm,
I used several on myself when, I was going through cancer. I'm going to
mhm,
do the healing. I'm going to do meditation. I'm going to do
mhm.
all different types and just feel what's right for you. But you know what? Use every tool in your toolbox,
Yeah, yeah,
just do it all.
yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Sometimes you might not have to do it all. Maybe the
Yeah,
one thing will be healed and but we are going to have a human experience, and through life, we're going to have different things that are going to transpire. Grief, right?
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
it's my baggage.
it's hard,
Yeah,
hard to get
so
through.
yeah,
Yeah. Emotional pain is super hard.
it's really difficult, and so we need these tools, the ones that
We
we could do on
do.
our own and the ones that we need some help with.
And I think what's really important during anybody's healing process, let's say, is self love.
Of course, number 1.
Right? And we forget to love ourselves because we're always busy doing for everybody else.
Yep, love of one.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh. Is there any other message that you'd like to bring to people? Maybe something that they can get out of your book too? A proof of miracles that could help them even?
Well, Proof of Miracles holds energy and healing energy. I've learned through so many people that have read the book, like they resonate with a certain chapter. And it was like they were having a healing by just reading the words. The energy was held in those words. And I worked with each client that had the healing to write those chapters. So I picked which ones I felt would be good for anyone that could read them. And you might pick it up later and say, I need this chapter. I need to read this one now. And the book was written for people to know that healing's possible and not to lose hope, and that hope exists, and that you're worthy of receiving everything and all.
Beautiful. How
Thank
could
you.
people get a hold of you, Deborah?
The best way is just going through my website at goldenmiracles.com. Everything's on there if they want to listen to more testimonials. It's on my YouTube's there. They can follow me on Instagram. I love it when people do because then I get to see, like, oh my gosh, you're in Army for Love. I've seen you get to feel more personal. So I
Yeah.
love, yeah. So I'm available in so many different ways, but it's all accessible through my website.
Okay,
Mhm.
perfect. And for those of you listening and watching today, I'll make sure that all of her information is also in the outro and included in the description along with her bio for more information. Deborah, thank you. Thank you so much for being here today to share this experience with my listeners. And just so I could just chat with you and say thank you from a personal perspective and from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
No, I'm grateful to you too for even sharing with me, like, what transpired with you in your healing sessions and that this miracle happened for you. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like, to be able to hear your voice and see you on screen, it's just such a gift. So thank you.
Of course. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Love of One. You can reach Debra Martin at www.goldenmiracles.com and find her in other Instagram handles and Facebook. You can find that information in the description of this episode. Thanks again for coming and listening. Find yourself back to the love of one. Until next time.